Welcome to the Happy Being Well podcast, where we talk about strategies and insights so you can live happy being well with your host, Rita Ferrugia. This podcast is presented by happybeingwell.com, your online store providing the best in all natural wellness products, such as natural essential oils, all natural bath products, all natural facial masks, all natural deodorants, irresistible leggings, crystals, including crystal home decor and kitchen items, herbal teas, natural sleep aids, and so much more natural wellness goodies at happybeingwell.com. Free shipping on any order within the USA at happybeingwell.com. Now enjoy the show.
Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Happy Being Well. We have an exciting guest today. We have Nanci Reed with us. She's a Pilates instructor. She is a healing spiritual coach. If I mess it up, she'll correct me. And an author as well. And so actually, Happy Being Well has featured Nanci Reed on the Happy Being Well blog. So she participated in a Q&A. And so if you want to learn more about Nanci, you can go there as well and read her Q&A section and learn more about her book, and her website's there and her Instagram's there as well. So Nanci, welcome to the Happy Being Well podcast.
Hi, Rita. So lovely to see you.
Yeah. So, I absolutely love the work that you do. Like, people like you are just, spreading more healing, more awakening, more ways to, most importantly, release stress, because
Yeah.
our society is, and I think we all can fall victim to, being overwhelmed with stress. And maybe it's always like falling off that wellness way to release stress, right? Because there's the wine there's maybe you want to just vent to a friend, but we know when you do that, it amplifies the energy. Our words have energy. Whatever we focus on amplifies. So sometimes, especially if you're new on this journey of emotional and mental mastery, you're always gonna like kind of revert back to a more like, we're habitual creatures, so it takes time to kind of correct our habitual ways to a much more healthier way to deal and release stress. So talk to us, like, what made you, like, what was been your journey to do what you're doing today, and how do you help your clients today?
Yeah, no, those are all great points. And you're so right about that. We all have different strategies that we employ when stress shows up. And some of them can be more like vices, and some of them can be actually really good for us and healthy. And, so the really important thing that I always encourage clients about, and certainly on my own self-healing journey, is that we want to be able to look at our choices, but without preconceived judgment or comparison. We want to bring, like I always say, kindness and curiosity into our lens for our mindset. And that really can change everything. So that way, we're not denying anything, because denial is not a spiritual state as much as maybe our little egos like to tell us it is. And that instead, when we can really look at something holistically, then we can actually evaluate, not from a place of judgment, but from a place of wonder, and being like, I wonder what purpose this served for me, let's say about something from the past. And if it's something that you discover from looking at it from that perspective, that isn't something that you want to continue, or that isn't something that feels good or doesn't feel healthy, this is not a place to go into, shame or blame or anything like that. This is a place to look at it and go, oh, well, now I know. So how can I take this information and empower myself to make a different decision in the future? Or if I'm in the present right now and I've noticed that I'm still wanting to keep on repeating, like you were saying, these habitual decision-making patterns, then again, this isn't a place of blame or shame or comparison. This is a place of looking at it and having compassion for yourself, and recognizing that for whatever reason, at this moment, this particular situation or this particular trigger is causing you to feel like that you don't have any other choice than the way that has worked for you in the past, even if it hasn't brought you the results that you want, right? So it's always about looking, but it's looking with holding on to, like I like to say, a different hand than maybe you have in the past. So instead of holding on to that hand of preconceived judgment, you're holding on to that hand of kindness. You're holding on to that hand of gentleness. And really, that can help you overcome any issue or pattern that isn't working for you. It's by looking at it without denial that you're actually able to invite the change to come in.
I absolutely love that. And the way you describe that is actually perfect, with such great insight and such depth, to, the real deal as to what makes this work, kind of challenging when you're going from a place, I mean, and I think we all know, like, due to just society, we just pick up stuff and we just roll with it. And denial is such a huge component, to the awakening process to evolve our consciousness, because of the ego. And I think that it's often not talked about enough. I think people just throw around the word ego and they really don't understand what that means. They think maybe it's just, you're into yourself, and it's you're selfish, right? I think there's such a limited um concept of what the ego truly is. Ego is not just about, this vain way of being, in terms of just, there's such a more broad range to it, meaning, you know like, I can speak from personal experience. The ego will prevent you from actually seeing, stuff like events that were not so pretty, that you went through, right?
Mhm.
Even if they weren't so horrific, maybe they're micro or whatever, but because of the way we've been conditioned in society, we're always so focused on, since we're little tots, to go to school, get good grades, da 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 da. So it's easy to get tunnel vision and not pay attention to, um, the not so great stuff that we've been through. But so the ego will just like deny, not look at it, and stuff it under the rug, and then we go on. But it becomes a program, and it becomes a program because it's living in our subconscious, and that's when we have a habitual way of, making choices that are not so good for us. Like, it could show up in many different ways, whether that be food, um, substances, dating the wrong partner over and over again. Maybe they might have a different face and different name, but essentially they're the same person. Um, and so, and it's a real, you know, journey to kind of really, really go there and tap into truth and really like lift the carpet up and bypass the ego. And I like the word you use, you said curiosity, get curious. And that is such a, like, great word to describe it, to get curious, because then it brings more excitement to kind of go through that discovery process of, you know, unraveling your programs so that you can deprogram them and reprogram them for a much more wellness and mindfulness way of being, instead of just like being stuck and perpetually living in the same essential program through your choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I want to highlight here is that with my approach, which is called Happily Ever Living, so it is my signature process for helping people to gently align their mind, body, and spirit with love rather than limitations as they are creating and curating their own self-healing process. And the ones that work the most for me within that self-healing genre are Pilates and practical spirituality. So those are the things that have worked for me the most. They're the things that have helped me the most on my journey, but by no means are they the only way to heal. So, I tell people that those are what work for me. If they work for you, fantastic. If they don't work for you, even more fantastic, because that means that you're being curious. It means that you're looking and that you're putting yourself into that place of wonder. And the really important thing to highlight here is that I'm not saying to go to war with that part of yourself that seems to, get you stuck in that same rut or in that hamster wheel of indecision or of, any of these unhealthy patterns at all. Because the more that actually we go to war with something, the more that then we actually are empowering it to be significant. And our ego, and I'm saying this from a frame of reference from what I study, which is called the Course in Miracles. So everything I'm saying here is through that lens. But the ego is, according to A Course in Miracles, is that part of us that likes being separate, that likes having our own identity, that likes not being the same, right, as everyone else and as everything else. It likes us having our individuality. And that individuality is not a bad thing at all, but it does, if we choose to, leave us feeling separate from other people. It tends to have us feeling isolated. It tends to have us feeling like there's a hierarchy between us and someone else's suffering, or between us and someone else's experience. Now, on the level of the body, all of this is, completely crazy to say, because everyone sees that bodies go through different things. And by no means am I saying to deny that. But I am saying on the level of the mind, which I know that there's, a lot of talk about these days too, is looking at the level of the mind-body connection. So on the level of the mind, that you want to see yourself as being the same as the person that you're working with, as the person that you're relating to. And so that you're both coming from being able to have the same ability to choose how you want to interpret any instance in your life. That's what makes you the same as somebody else, not the specific experiences, but the ability to choose what lens you're going to be using for interpreting and experiencing your experience known as your life.
Yes, absolutely. You mean we have a choice in terms of
Yes.
how to perceive something, a situation, or if yes, that's the one. Yeah, that is the one commonality that all us humans share, is that we have a choice to how we want to choose to look at something. But if you want to hit the rewind button on that too, it's important to understand that how we look at something is framed by our programs, our life experiences, what we've been taught, what we've been exposed to, that has created help us mold our beliefs, our values, our lens, right? But it's up to us to identify what made up our lens in order to understand that process, to understand that there's many ways to look at a situation, to identify the most, what's the best way to look at it, what's the most healthiest, positive one that you can find solutions, and just basically be the most resourceful. Basically what we're talking is tapping into being the most resourceful state that you can be in. And everything that we're talking about leads to that. It's such a integrated process. There's so many.
Exactly. And so whether you're speaking about how you're interacting with your own body, right? So like somebody that's curious about getting into something like Pilates or yoga or some sort of movement, or someone that's wanting to heal something within their body, maybe that there's been a recurring injury, or there's been a misalignment, or some sort of injury or something like that, that it's the same process, even though the actual form is different, right? So you're coming from that same approach, which is being curious, looking at things and saying well, what are the options for me here? And knowing that there's always a decision that you can make in any instant to either see yourself as being empowered or disempowered. And again, that's not denial. It is about that nobody can give that power to you and no one can take it from you unless you choose to give it to them. So like, I quote in my book, Happily Ever Now, Not After Everything Else is Perfect, which is a gentle guide for helping you to overcome the paralysis of perfectionism by embracing our innate guidance, is that just like Viktor Frankl teaches in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, about the Holocaust, that we always have as our last remaining freedom in this life, the ability to choose how to respond to any situation, even the most dire. So something small, we have the ability to respond, and something not so small, right, according to the world. And when you recognize that and you actually take ownership of it, there's so much comfort that comes from recognizing that I am the source of my own empowerment. Not anybody else outside of you, not some guru, not someone that, says they have all the answers for you, but that you, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what you've gone through, no matter what you're going through right now, there's still the truth that if it's possible for one of us to experiencing an awakening, and it's possible for all of us. And that is what makes us the same. And that is what you can apply to whatever aspect of your life you're wanting to heal. So if it's something on the level of the mind, the body, or the spirit, or all three, right? You can still take that same intentionality and that same approach, and you can find a way to approach your specific experience with that abstract thought. And that will make your experience the most meaningful to you. And that makes you then become a part of your self-healing versus apart from it. And that is the most important thing in my experience in my own journey, and that with my client as well.
Wow, that is super powerful. I love that. I think that, yeah, that is really powerful because it's like we get so caught up, it's so easy to get so caught up in ourselves, meaning, just always focusing on, our immediate circumstances or just us, and forgetting the other people have been where we are and they found a way to, excel within that specific situation or circumstance that you may be in yourself, right? We forget that. And so when we tap into the other people, like we all have had similar experiences in some shape or form, to varying degrees. And then of course we don't have, there's some experiences that we don't share, but it's really true when you remind yourself of that, like other humans have surpassed whatever it is you're going through. That is a very powerful, empowering way to kind of expand your thinking and expand your consciousness. So I love that. And that's why like biographies are so powerful too, to like read, or even if you're watching a documentary on TV. Um, I love, like I think I was watching recently, I think it was Richard Pryor's little documentary there. It isn't, and so they're always so powerful because it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize he went through all that. Or, I barely knew his career. I mean, I knew he was a comedian, a famous comedian, but it's it's it they're I don't know, it's awakening. It's when you read other people's biographies and see like how they've overcome and they've attained success even though they've been struggling and stuff like that. So biographies are super powerful. I think they help tap into what you're talking about. Um, so you talked about the mind-body connection. So how do you achieve that? How do you achieve the mind-body?
So that's a great question. There are many different approaches, but I will say that what's worked for me is to combine setting an intention with whatever movement that I'm wanting to let's say, make happen, so that I'm staying present in the moment with movement. And what that does then is that if I'm setting an intention before I do, let's say, a workout or something like that, then I am calling in a certain energy. And I am also then aligning my energy with that energy that I'm calling in, right? And so then I'm able to go through the workout. And regardless of what the specifics are that I'm doing in the specific workout, I am still remembering that intention that I set. And then at the end of the workout, like with Pilates or anything else that I'm doing physically, I will do a brief meditation and breathing, usually exercise or something like that. Again, restating the intention as more of like an affirmation. And so that is my approach to it. And that is something that you can, try on for size, see if it fits for you. Not, find something else, because there are billions, if not infinite, possibilities out there of things that can work for you. But I will say that the collection of the mind body together is really about recognizing the interdependence of the two of them and how that they each play a part with each other, right? So that if you're doing something, having a great time with your friends and you're doing something physical or something like that, but you're not being present with it, then there definitely is a more likelihood of you getting injured. There's a more likelihood of, things happening that you are not expecting and then feeling unprepared for them. So I always remember there's a great book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. And he talks about that for women, especially, empowering themselves to not become targets of stalking or, that kind of thing. Like in LA, I remember going hiking actually and having just read that book. And it literally saved my life based on what he had said, because he said that when you're being present, then you're able to respond. Versus if you're worrying all the time about something that might happen, then you're projecting into the future and you're actually missing the opportunity to be your most aligned and your most responsive in the present, because you're thinking about things either from the future or you're dwelling on things from the past. So bringing yourself into the present is so powerful because it allows you to be completely responsive. And it allows you to be actually listening versus anticipating a response. So like in acting, I know I took a few classes when I lived in LA, and they were telling, about the difference between an actor that is being responsive versus one that is anticipating the line. So if you're responding in a scene, then you're being totally present and you're not thinking about when the person's going to say their cue that's going to trigger your next line. You're actually in the moment. So it's the same thing, no matter what approach you're wanting to experience or whatever situation you're going through, you can bring that same mindset into the experience to be the most empowered, the most aligned with what's true for you, and then giving yourself the most options. And that's when it feels like, in my experience, that time literally expands, because now you have allowed yourself to see what's really possible instead of the limited, like you were saying, tunnel vision earlier, that you have limited yourself to believing is possible.
I love that. That was really powerful. So I think, yeah, we hear this, be present, be present. I think what you just described there allows people to really understand that concept more. I think that concept is being thrown around without really going into detail as to really what that means. Like, um, you know, like they say, okay, you're thinking in the future, you're thinking in the past. Sure, that's obviously a big part of it. But I think, like listening to an example like that, when you're like an actor, for example, and you're anticipating someone else's line, so you're thinking, and you're not really experiencing in the moment what's really going on and living it in your body, embodying, being in your spirit, basically, as an actor in this specific example. So you're not like, you're just not, you're not gonna you can tell, first of all, you can tell like the actor, the greatest
Mhm.
actors, they literally start to embody the characters because they're
Mhm.
actually in the present, like you mentioned. Like when we see Anthony Hopkins and he's playing with Hannibal Lecter, like his eyes start to look sociopath. Like the
Mhm.
eyes change, right? The facial, like it looks now, he really truly looks like a psychopath, right? Because he's embodying it in the moment. In the moment, he really feels and truly is that particular character on a spiritual level. He's in a spirit, meaning he's not sitting there and thinking, oh, I gotta do this facial expression. Oh, I have to, he's not in the mind so much. He's just kind of um
Yeah, and he's not trying to, tell, quote unquote. He's actually showing what the experience is. And that there's a big difference in that. And so even like when I'm working with, clients about their specific bodies with Pilates, it's about allowing them to really listen to their body and to respond to it. And the body is going to speak in its own language. It's going to speak through muscle engagement. It's going to speak through lengthening and quickening and all these other things that we as humans tend to kind of just overlook and be like, oh, I'm feeling tired, or oh, I have this tight spot in my leg or something. But we don't really listen to what the body is trying to communicate to us. And so what I try to do with clients is to help them to dialogue with their bodies and to again enter into that place of presence with their bodies, so that even if we're working on an injury that happened, let's say a decade ago or something, I tell them to come into the moment with their body. And then yes, you can use information from the past to help you navigate things in the present, but that's not what's happening right now. That injury is not happening right now. It happened 10 years ago. So, how can we get the body to be willing to trust us that we're using it, right? And actually to make there to be this collaboration rather than an adversarial relationship. A lot of times people will go to war with their body. They'll be upset with their body. They'll be judgmental of their body. They're very, very, very unkind. And so, one of the key things I ask clients to do is to try on this idea of being gentle with themselves and to say thank you to their body. Before they ask it to do anything, I ask them to be grateful to it. Even if it's in pain at that moment, I say, send your body a thank you note mentally right now and let it know, thank you for letting me know that you're uncomfortable. I will do the best I can to meet you where you are and not cause more uncomfort, and discomfort. Let me be basically your friend here, right? We're in this together. So that there's not this sense of pushing through the pain, denying the pain, getting past something, checking out mentally and just doing a certain exercise. It's instead, again, bringing the body along with you rather than just kind of dragging it, screaming, and ignoring what its pleas are. So, really, to allow it to be heard, and you don't have to necessarily believe its story of pain or anything like that, but you can acknowledge it and you can allow it to then be as it's going to be and then go through your experience. And so that approach with my own body, I know from healing a very serious shoulder injury, is what really, really, really made all the difference. And I've seen it with clients again and again and again. And I've worked with over 1,000 private clients since I began my practice with Pilates and spiritual life coaching. And I've seen it with them as well. And I share some of those stories in my book too about the individual testimonials. So I know that not only from personal experience, but from seeing within my clients' experiences too, that it is possible when you're willing to change the way that you approach your body to actually being more consistent, where you're the consistency, your character and how you're being with yourself, the lens you're choosing, that's what's consistent. And then all of the inconsistencies outside of you, you're able to navigate from a greater place of empowerment than ever before, because now you know what's true for you. And then everything else is going to come into that alignment in whatever way is going to be the most helpful and the most healing.
I love that. I love that. And I think that, needs to be understood too on a deep level, because it took me a long time to really be able to decipher, what my body is like basically doing. What is my body doing? Right? Is my heart going faster? Is my muscles tense? Because we are so used to living in our head, or thinking thoughts. Think through it. What is it? What's the most logical way to make a choice? Meanwhile, our body is going haywire and we're completely abandoning what's really going on. A lot of people can't even, it's really hard for them to really go into their body. And when you
Mhm.
ask them, what is your body doing? What is it? It's so hard because it's like they're still in their head. Like, oh, I think I feel sad, or I feel,
Mhm.
it's just, and I can totally relate to that because, just through our societal conditioning, we're always, living in our heads to function in society. So, um, it's it's a real like journey, a real conditioning process to start listening and learning how to do that. Because that's where we can get better with our intuition as well. Because um, I know for me, it was always a perplexing like thing to try to figure out how do I decipher between my egoic thoughts and my actual real true intuitive thoughts, because it's my ego can trick me thinking it's my intuition, but really it's my
Mhm.
ego. So it was a real journey to try to decipher the two, and a lot of it was really just learning how to listen to my it, I, I'm going to say, yeah, listen to my body, but learning how to um know that what's really my body. And like, for example, for me, how I deciphered was, when I finally like trusted my body, because the mind fights, the mind would fight, my mind fought it anyways. And my mind's like, whatever. No, your body's just reacting because, it's just fear. But logically, no, that this is the choice, right? I would have this huge internal fight, um, because my mind wanted to be the head commander, right? Because
Mhm.
my mind was like, this is now logically, we need to think through it. This is the most safe. um the body's just reacting. I would literally go through this whole shebangle, I remember. So but when I finally identified, no, that body's that's the real truth. Like if my body's going haywire, you know I'm starting to feel like tension and like just really going, and where is it is it swirling, what is it doing? um then I'm like, no, 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 something is wrong here. Like, let's listen to this. Um and also too, if it's just making a decision where you're not having those like a negative body reaction, but if you're calm, if you're really calm, the nervous system is really calm as well, then if it, depending upon the choice, then that's when you're tapping into your spirit as well, the
Yeah.
intuitive.
No,
Intuitive.
absolutely. And I have a similar litmus test for deciding if something is intuition versus ego. And for me, it's that do I feel calm right now? Do I feel like that there's actually that expanded sort of sense of time? Or do I feel urgency? Do I feel pressure? Do I feel like almost a crazy amount of anxiety or excitement, even where there's something that is really that I'm wanting it to happen? And that if it doesn't happen a certain outcome, that I'm going to be disappointed or I'm going to basically lose my peace, right? So if I find through my kindness and curiosity looking that I am feeling any of those sort of things, then I just gently go, this might not be my intuition. This might be my ego speaking right now. And, it doesn't mean I always choose my intuition. Sometimes I still go, oh, screw it. I'm going to go for my ego and, well aware of it. Because it's just something that at that moment that I want. And, and that's another part of being able to have compassion for ourselves and recognize that when we're rolling that gutter ball in, the bowling alley, and we are well aware that we're rolling it anyways, that just to see it, but not judge ourselves for it is actually as though we didn't roll it, right? So you allow yourself to go into those situations, and that when I know that something is an intuitive nudge, there's a gentleness to it. It's almost like a tapping rather than a poking. It's this might be a nice thing to look into. And when it unfolds, it will be perfectly imperfectly right on time. And how it unfolds will be perfectly imperfectly, right on time as well. And there's just this lightness to it. There's the curiosity aspect to it. There's the idea of that it doesn't need to be as specific. It's more the abstract energy behind it. And that when I feel that sense, then it's a very gentle and easy yes, versus that if I feel any sort of rush or urgency or pressure or anything like that, then I usually can tell that that's the ego speaking. And, I acknowledge it, but I don't have to give it my power of decision.
I love that. And I love the fact that you say don't judge yourself. That's a big component as well. And just have compassion for yourself, forgive yourself for what you've, past um, choices or what have you, because this is all just a progression experience. As long as you're like, heading towards progress, it's all good. And in fact, sometimes our bad experiences are actually the the accelerators to more success, is that because it really truly puts gasoline on you to to kind of overcome it or up level, because you have that contrast. You have that because contrast is a very powerful, um provides so much insight and understanding when you have that contrast of different experiences. Um, so yeah. I loved this conversation, Nanci. So we have to have you back on the Happy Being Well podcast. I really loved your insights and how you describe things, and you really went in depth. So it's been refreshing. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I'm sure my audience did. So if they want to like purchase your book, what's the name of your book and where can they purchase your book?
Well, so it's called Happily Ever Now, Not After Everything Else is Perfect. They can find it on my website, actually, which for the book itself is happilyeverNowBook.com. And you can purchase it there. There's also a bonus freebie that I'm offering there as well, which is not included in the book. So it's an extra bonus if anyone's curious about that. They can also find me on my main website at nancireed.com. They can find me in the Instaverse at Happily Ever Living or at Nanci Ann Reed as well. And they can find me on Facebook at Happily Ever Living as well.
Okay, great. So all those links will be in the show notes, but if they go to nancireed.com, can they still have a way to purchase your book through there?
Yes, at the
Okay.
top of there's like a banner ad at the top of it that says new book here. They can purchase it right from there. And they can get it from Amazon or from lots of other places too.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So I highly, highly encourage everyone to purchase her book. I'm sure like from based on what she's saying, her book would I may even purchase her book. So and also, how do you work with clients if they want to seek either Pilates or your spiritual life coaching? Do you like,
Yeah, so I do in-person sessions for Pilates and for spiritual life coaching if they're local up here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Or I also do online offerings where we can do private or duet sessions for the Pilates. And we can also do private life coaching, spiritual life coaching calls. And also I have a program for that as well.
awesome. So guys, check out nancireed.com. I'm sure that's like your hub where everything is
Yes,
located.
everything is there. You can find me for everything from that location.
Okay. You can get her book there. You can book her a Pilates session or spiritual life coaching there. So thank you so much, Nanci. This was a wonderful conversation. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. And any closing words before we close out?
One last thing is that for Nanci, it's Nanci Reed.com, Reed.com. And the closing thought is just that now is always the perfectly imperfect time to begin living your own happily ever now, not after everything else is perfect.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, so guys, I hope you check out nancyreed.com. The link will be in the show notes. And remember to live happy being well. And remember, if you need sage or Palo Santo or crystals, visit happybeingwell.com. Free shipping in the USA. Until next time, guys.
Bye.
If you learned something new or were inspired to live happy being well, please be sure to subscribe to the Happy Being Well podcast so you don't miss an upcoming episode. Also, please feel free to leave a 5-star review, including what you learned or what inspired you in today's episode. This podcast is presented by happybeingwell.com, your online store for natural wellness products, so you can live happy being well. Order your next all-natural essential oil, all-natural face mask, all-natural bath soap, all-natural deodorant, herbal tea, crystals including crystal home decor and kitchen items, irresistible leggings, and much more at happybeingwell.com. Free shipping on all orders within the USA.